Today is the March 8th. It's the International Women's Day. So just say hello to all the women for your celebration, your Women's Day. And but this day, I will give you a very difficult topic to talking about the first crisis happened in China in the year 1949 to 1951. These are 3 years, 49, 50, and 51. It's the new China, that is a revolutionary China or communist China or socialist China, whatever. That is ideology. Give the title of China is a West ideology to describe China. But indeed, it's just a big indigenous Asian country. When they gained the independence, they first met very serious economic crisis. No, I don't want to say the economic crisis. It must be a very complicated situation. We can say that's comprehensive crisis, not only happening in economic field, but also happening in the social and the political and the different field. So let me try to give the explanation about this title. Why that I set up this title is a revolutionary revenue plus regional war cover the serious inflation crisis. Means that these are two factors. Revolutionary revenue means that there's a peasant country with almost 90% population living countryside. They joined the revolution and then they created large amount of the revenue, that's institutional revenue. And then the ruling party or the new authority, new governments, utilize or develop this institutional revenues for funding the sovereignty currency system to deal with the high inflation. In the end, means that to use or to develop this big institutional revenue to cover the economic crisis, the cost of the economic crisis. Not only for that, but also that because of the Korean War, that is a regional war. But in the 1940s, the whole world led by these two big countries, United States and the Soviet Union, ran into the Cold War. That is a very special historical period. And among these so-called Cold War, there are several regional wars around China. The first regional war around China is the Korean War. It's the Korean Peninsula. Have a very big battle since the year 1950. So we said that the regional war create large demand to the domestic, to China's industries. So one thing that we can say is institutional revenue. Another one that is outside the war created large demand and to give the chance, the room for the domestic industries, and then they can produce more. And that time means that from 1951, because of the war, the crisis recovered. So that is a so-called psychological crisis. From the 1958-59, there's a very big inflation. And then from 59, the Communist Party, to be the ruling party, take the power and set up the new governments. The first challenge is that this new governments must solve the problem of the crisis. So we are going to give you 10 topics to divide it. It's more than 67 years Chinese modern history into 10 crises. We will give you the explanation very briefly to explain what happened in modern China since 1949. So this time is the first topic, first lecture. So the preface, I'm trying to tell you that why nowadays, these years, recent years, the international society pay a lot of attention, pay attention to China's growth. And there are somehow these media or some studies, they publish their report talking about the China as an emerging country, as one of the emerging country, will grow up very faster. Even some Western media estimate China will go beyond of United States in the year of 2018. Now this year is 2017. Next year is 2018. We can see what happened. And especially that when the new president takes power in the United States, a lot of people think that he is very urgent, want to regenerate the American physical economy, means the industries. That is caused by the Chinese industries. Now China realized industrialization and then have a large amount of yield of the industrial sector. And then set up such kind of competition with Western society, with Western countries. So that is why they are very urgent to give a lot of explanations on the Chinese growth. So that is I think that is why they concern, because China grew up as an industrial country, industrialized country. And then I think that we need, besides this, these very recent comments on China's growth, China rising or so what, but many different explanations. But we need to learn how to follow the economic regulation. So here I put two curves. Up one is United States, lower one is Chinese, to show that the cyclical crisis, up and down, is a kind of regulation economically. And before any country, before this country run into the industrialization, the economic growth is almost even, no big change. Because that if you are in agricultural production, means the agricultural history, only affected by the climate. Or natural disasters, flood, or wind, or big snow, or whatever. But when you run into the industrialization, you have a multiple risk. Not only one sector, natural disaster or some climate change. When you start to have a so-called mass production, means that the market is uncertainty. The economic should be uneven. So up and down, that will be the historical period of industrialization, very popular phenomena. So no matter this country claim what isms, like United States claim that United States is a capitalist country or imperialist country, whatever ideology describe this country is what kind of system. Or China, a lot of people think that China is a communist country or socialist country, whatever. But all of these descriptions come from the West-centric, from the ideology created also by Western countries. So few people can give the detailed explanation, the deepened understanding of China, especially when China is a developing country, not Western country. The difference is very, very clear to understand. So-called developed country, almost all of them they have a historical chance to take others' resources. That is colonization. And almost all the developing countries, including of China, have no chance to go outside to take others' resources or make other people to be the slaves. So the primitive accumulation of the industrialization is different. If you have the chance to go out to take others' resources, others' properties, certainly you think that you are easier to go beyond of the primitive accumulation to set up the so-called capital-intensive industries, because you have to take a lot of properties. But if you have no such kind of chance, you only can turn inside to take the surplus from your own people, from your own resources. Means that you have to stand on more big cost. There must be very hard the conflicts. So the conflicts always confrontations among these different interest groups. So the social contradiction in developing countries must be more severe than these colonized countries, these colonial countries. That is a big difference. Means that prehistory of the industry. That is the basic knowledge. But most of these textbooks never talk about such kind of basic knowledge. So it means that a lot of developing countries, if you cannot set up your industries, you cannot join the world industrial competition, means that you are in backward. Not mean that you have no chance. It means that you're just backward. Or even that you are somehow institutional problems or cultural problems or whatever, even racial problems. So that is a misunderstanding. So we should know that even these so-called advanced countries like United States, when they run into the industrialization, they also have the big crisis. That's one. That is 1930s. The economic crisis happened in the United States. What happened in this advanced country? Even they have big resources. They have a so-called advanced education, science, technology, and even institution. And what happened there? So-called unemployment. A large number of people out of job. And these are so-called some very radical group. They captured black people and then burn them out, saying that it's because black people work hard to take the job from white people. So there is a social chaos. There's also the murder and the massacres. And a lot of bad things happen when the economic crisis happened. So the social relations are so very intense, very tension relations. So many countries, especially in Europe country, when they have the crisis, the economic problem turned to the social problem, even turned to the political problems, like the fascism in Europe and racialism in Europe or in other Western countries. So we should do some comparative studies and then have the basic arguments from the indigenous country, from the developing country, from our own experiences, from the analysis onto these experiences. So now we have to talking about what is the creative, theoretical creative. First, we need to talking about the institution, but the institution not originally make the decision to decide what will be happen. The institutions come from the industrialization, from the primitive accumulation. What kind of resources structure? And then you can set up what kind of institution. So the institution not originally set up by some leader or some governments, the institution is that followed the procedure of the industrialization. So that is the first. We need to challenge a lot of Western-centric ideology talking about institution. They said you have institutional problems, so you need transition. From where? Transit to where? They said, okay, you need to transit from your institution to my institution. And then they make you believe the institutions decide a lot of things. That is the base. But we should turn this idea to make developing countries' people understand the institution not originally happened in or before the industrialization. The institutions, the systems, the measures, the mechanisms, whatever, all followed the procedure of your industrialization. It means that you cannot simply, very simple to duplicate others' institutions, other systems, or other political regime. You need to think about how can you carry out your own industrialization and then set up applied institution for yourself. So that is the first challenge we need to raise up. And we should know that the economic crisis is very popular. Everybody can easier to acknowledge. There is the psychological crisis happened not only in others, but also inside, in ourselves. But we also need to pay attention to the studies on how governments deal with this economic crisis. What kind of the measures the governments adopt. If you believe the market system, you may go to the market measures to do the going short. So if you believe another side, you said, okay, governments can do going long. Going short and going long, it's two different streams, two different systems. Sure, if the economic grow up, it's a booming economy, certainly you can just release control and then let these private sectors just going short. They take their interests. But if you're facing the challenge of the economic crisis, governments must take the responsibility to do the measures of going long. This is a very simple idea, but very complicated systematic problems, because if you don't have enough ability to use the treasury system, I mean government fiscal system, you even cannot do anything going long. If you have no independent financial system, I mean the bank system, if your bank system controlled by the transnational company, you have a government, it could hardly to take the measures as going long. So I said, to understand there is a kind of regulations of the psychological crisis, that will be not so difficult. Going forward, to do your studies, to know what is the measures when the government's facing the challenge of the crisis, going long or going short. If you do want to going long, what is your hands? Do you have hands? One hand is fiscal system, another hand is a bank system. If you don't have these two hands, you cut down your two hands. Whatever you have, you only have a big head and then big mouth. You speak a lot, like these politicians. They have given all the good words to the common people. But finally, people think, okay, you're a liar. You speak more, you do less. You cannot just claim these politicians do less, because they don't have the hands. That is the problem. So if you are a people in some kind of country, you need to understand what kinds of your country can have, what your country can use And then you may do something. Not only just follow some slogans, some flags, and then join the campaigns. You cannot save your country. You also cannot save your people. So that is very important. And when we noticed, when we acknowledge the government's adopting what kind of measures, we may, going forward, to notice whatever governments adopt as a kind of measures to deal with the economic crisis must turn to the institutional change. If you set up a very strong controlled bank system, certainly there will be a big interest group. The government-controlled bank system turn to the big interest group, very much influence the government's policies. Then you need to pay attention to. What they will do, they become a kind of monopoly-controlled interest group, control all the financial resources, or they may welcome this transnational company to share the profits, or they may turn back to the long-run construction. What kind of role this interest group play? That will be more important to understand what is the post-crisis measurement or post-crisis policies. So that is, I strongly recommend the developing countries' progressive scholars give little time to learn that how Chinese governments, when they founded in the 1949, facing the challenge of the serious inflations, how the Chinese governments take the opportunity to use some kind of the government's hands and then to make the economic recovery. So it's very important. Here I put these two pictures to show that, left one, to show that since the 2012, China has become the top one industrialized country. If you just calculate the industrial PPT by industrial GDP by PPP calculation, you may find that this one big economy, the total industrial products equal to United States and equal to other 8 industrialized advanced countries. Means that nowadays China regained the position as the beginning of 19th century. Before 1840s, the total production volume in China is 1/3 of the world. Since imperialist country attacked China, China downgrade. Now 160 years passed, or 170 years passed. China regained the position as 1/3 of the total amount of the world economic volume. And just not the same concept, only industries. China now can have 1/3 of the total industrial products. Here, it's a very interesting to show that, okay, they have a dialogue. And German nowadays still be a very big industrial country. China also. So they all have these two. But new president of United States only have a small one. This picture shows that the industry in United States only 11% of the total GDP. But in China, the industrial nowadays still 37 to 38% of the total GDP. German similar, So in these countries, I mean, in China, in Germany, industrial GDP still be 1/3. And the total amount of the Chinese industrial products to the world is 1/3. So that is a new phenomenon. Make people pay attention to China, make people concern China. So let's going to talk about the historical constraints. Almost all of these developing countries, including of China, want to learn from Western countries. But the critical issue of these developing countries is that they cannot learn West because no chance for recolonize. So the Western countries can have such kind of historical opportunity, other developing countries cannot. So that means all of this population, you cannot send them out. So China now is the biggest population country with 1.37 billion. This population give you a very heavy pressure as a heavy burden. If you are going to set up industries, the industries have an inside mechanism. The inside mechanism is what? It's capital intensive and then reduce the labor. These are big population countries all need to pay attention to employment because you have a very big population. But if you set up industries always create the capital, reduce the labor. Employments will be the big problems. So in 1930s, you can see that it's black-white pictures to show that in 1930s, it's because of this crisis happened in 1930s. The KMT governments cannot solve the problems. So large number of the population to be the migrants, no job, flow as a flood. And this one is 2008. When United States happened to have the financial turmoil, the overseas demand large decreased. So from 2008, there are a large number of the labor in the coastal China lay off. When they want to go back to their home village, there is a natural disaster happened because of a global warming. And then there's a lot of electricity facilities freezed. And so no electricity supply. And these electricities, there's energies, the transportation stopped. So these are thousand people hustled in the squares in front of the railway station. That will be a social chaos. So I don't want to give more details about such kind of story, but just tell you the pictures shows that this big population country always be developing country. So if you go to this country less population, it must be the colonial country or colonized country. Colonized country means that you have indigenous people lost, and colonial people come to take the resources, and then the population size is smaller. And these colonial master countries, they send out a lot of people, and then the indigenous inside became smaller. So let's compare these two basic situations. You may know that how difficult in developing countries when they want to set up industries. So the precondition is quite different. So that's because of the colonization, there is a three different capitalism. Three parts of the world. So we divided the whole world into three parts. And then you can have a basic picture to know that where you are. The first one is that is a so-called United States, Canada, Australia, Brazil, and some is a colonized area. So that is a small population size, big resources. They have a more advantage, more priorities to run their industrialization. But if they fail, no reason. But nothing. The second part is so-called the colonial master countries. That's old Europe. The old Europe all set up the industries. And people, because of they set up industries, and so they all facing the challenge of overproduction. That is why the First World War, the Second World War, all happened in Europe. I don't want to give a more explanation about what is the culture in Europe. But anyway, people notice the industrialization never solved the problem of conflicts, but may give more events to make the conflicts become more severe, more bad. And then the third one is an Asian model. So the first one is an Anglo-Saxon model, second one is a Rhine model, the third one is an Asian model. Asian model including of Japan, Korea, China, Chinese Taiwan, or Vietnam is an East Asian area. They have an Asian model. You'd better know that these areas all set up the industries. I mean, finish the industrialization. No matter whatever ism they claim, I mean, no matter this Cold War ideology, they indeed, in the truth, all of these areas, these countries or regions, all set up the industries. So we should divide this capitalism, the capitalist world, into three parts, and then to do the studies to compare different parts, and then we may have the truthful acknowledgement. When we talk about the economic crisis, I think that we should, especially when we talk about 1949's economic crisis, we must notice this 49th economic crisis not created by 49. It's created by the 1930s. In 1930s, that is a so-called golden age in KMD governments. That is when KMD governments also trying to set up modernization by the urbanization, industrialization. These are two stations. Urbanization, industrialization always be the main part of the modernization. So when the KMD government set up their governments, they want to going forward to set up the modernized society. So modernization is a long-term target, it's aim. So when 1930s, the KMD governments settled the whole countries. Nominally, all the local warlords joined the central governments, claim central power. So the KMD government's industrialization started from the late 1920s to the early 1930s. So they have a 10 years high growth. Annually, GDP growth, if you have to calculate them by GDP, annual growth, 8.6, 8.4 or 8.6. Not very little. It's a high growth. Because if you calculate this new China, it's 9.6. So the old China have a 10 years, 8.4. Not so low. It's a high growth. This high growth constrained by 1929 to 1933 West countries crisis. A lot of people know knows that there is or there was a Western countries crisis in 1930s. Few people understand the golden age in 1930s, old China, I mean KMT government's China, very strong impact by 1930s world economic crisis. It's because originally China used the currency as a silver. The silver is the currency in China. But China not have so many silver mine. So China large import silver since 15th century. Since 15th century, not 20th century. China large amount import silver 500 years. Because China export a lot. China's tea and silks. So they got large number of the trade surplus. This trade surplus, China not need products. They only need silver. So large number of silver flow into China for almost 500 years. To make whole China have no silver mine, but China, the whole society, use the silver as the currency. Exchange, reserve. Not only the governments, but also the private sector. Even all the landlord, businessmen, all want to keep more silver as properties to show that they are rich enough. They have many silvers, and even they put underground for their young generation, for their family sustainability. But after the 1930s, during the 1930s Western countries crisis, the silver price increased by the silver mine states in the United States. In the United States, there are 6 states. They contribute a lot of silvers and exports. And when the crisis happened, originally it's a deflation. Deflation means that the gold and silver, the price of the gold and silver decreased. So these states, they are short of the budget. And so they want the federal governments give them the priority to increase the price. So when they increase price, means that the world market silver price increased. And then the silver in China is a currency. The governments cannot make so high price of the silver. So you have a low price silver. Overseas, there's high price silver. And then what happened? Your low price silver, smuggling out. Means that originally you use the silver as the currency. You must stabilize your silver price. So if your silver price increased, means that the whole of everything will be very much bad impact. So, but when the silver flow out, smuggling flow out, and then means that you have a shortage of the silver. Means that inside of Chinese silver markets, the price will be more higher and higher. So bad impact the whole of the economic growth. And then enforce the KMT governments change the financial system, issue the paper money. The paper money originally in 1950 is issued in the November of 1935 in name of 法币. I don't know how to translate it in English. 法币 means a legal currency, but it's paper currency. That is the first when the Chinese economy turned to the industrialization and the urbanization, and then followed money system reform. From the silver system reform to the paper currency system. That is the first time KMT governments want to set up the sovereignty currency system. That is a legal currency system. It's a sovereignty currency system. if the governments win, they will stabilize the economy, not very much influenced by the overseas silver markets. So this effort is very important. Even that is old governments, but we need to be very objective to give an analysis about such kind of effort. It's important. But when these KMT governments want to stabilize the new money system, they're facing the big challenge of Japan, because Japan is that time failed to fight with Soviet Union in Mongolia, that is area. Originally, Japan supported by British and United States. Going forward to the north, attack Mongolia and Siberia to take the resources from these areas. That is why the United States and the British all back up Japan. And then that time, in 1930s, when Japan failed in the battle with Soviet Union's army, Japan turned back to the south. The first strategy is control the northeast China. And then second, going to the North China, Hubei. That happened in the same year, 1935, when the KMT governments want to stabilize the currency system. Japanese army controlled the North China. And then when they control these areas, they increase the silver price to make all these gold and silver flow to the North China, controlled by Japan. And then when these KMT governments lost this silver and the gold, their legal currency, their paper currency, have no base or less base. So means that the currency will be reduced. The currency value will be reduced. That is the computation. So from 1936, Japanese prepare for further attack the KMT governments. And then this side, KMT governments also need to take more revenues, more resources, also for the preparation of the war with Japan. So the local markets, the resources became high price. And the currency system became inflation. So from 1936 to 1937, the inflation started in China. So this is why originally you can see that the currency, you can see the currency, this one. The left side, upper one, when they just issue this paper currency, the value of the currency is smaller, 20, that's one. And then later, became much bigger, million. Look, right side. Left side, 20 or 10 or 30, it's a small money, small bill. Became a big bill, million. And then 10 years later, or 12 years later, in 1948, you can see this bill. How much is this one? It's a 6 billion. One bill, 6 billion. Means that inflation became more severe. This high inflation attacked the KMT government's economy. In 1930s, 1940s, almost all people have to stand such kind of high inflation. Almost in industries, almost all of the industries cannot stand. All the local business cannot stand because high inflation very bad attacked the economy, the physical economy. Another side, there's so many white sheet small piece of papers. What is that? That is a Communist Party's area. It's a guerrilla-controlled area. They don't have currency, but they need resources. They need to take some clothes, some foods, and whatever. And so what they don't have the currency, no legal money. How they deal with the problems? They gave the white sheet. White sheet means that I sign how much grain I took from your village, how much clothes, how much shoes, and whatever, and how many labors you contribute to the guerrilla movements. All give you a certificate. And then these certificates means that they don't need modern economic system. They use very traditional one. But that's low cost. And then the local people believe that when you win, you set up a new authority, you should pay back. So means that they have no modernized economy sector. They have no such kind of sectors, modern sectors. But the guerrilla movements, they can be succeeded to mobilize the common people join the guerrilla movements, they will win the fightings. So one is modernization with very high cost. Another is very traditional way in this rural area. So finally, you found that rural surrounded the city. The villages surrounded this industrialized city. And that is a so-called 农村包围城市. And that is the way of the Chinese Revolution success. So when we give such kind of description, it's a story to show that when this countryside surround the cities as the Chinese Revolution success, the way of success. But finally, these guerrilla people all need to control the big cities. When they take the cities, they need to run the cities. That is a challenge. So you cannot stop outside the door, outside the gate of the city. No, you got to inside. So they said, take these cities. It's our next stage of the revolution. But how to run the cities will be more difficult than by taking the cities. That is why, since the 1940s, especially late 1940s, inside of Communist Party leadership, they have so many discussions. How can we run? How can we maintain the cities? How can the new governments avoid old governments' trouble? It's a big challenge. So that is why we need to give you give you a picture about the lessons. The KMT governments want to set up a modernization. They do their efforts, but failed. Why? Outside and inside. There are different events to impact, to make the old governments failed. And also think about that. You have a modernized army with modernized facilities, big gun, tank, and air force, whatever, all need a budget. So the old government's 87% of the fiscal system, the fiscal revenue, sponsor the army, gave to the army. And then another side, governments have a fiscal system, that's one hand. Another hand, governments have a bank system, but bank only can give the loans with this useless currency because it's less value. The common people cannot just, when they want to buy some food, they need to have a large package of the currency. So certainly the local people and the common people have a lot of complaints. Nobody is satisfied. And then you cannot give your soldiers, your officers, big package of the currency as a salary. They cannot. So that is why almost all the generals, all the officials, they use this currency to change the gold or the silver. So that is why the big corruption happened in the old governments. When the old governments want to do the deepen currency system reform, they want to set up a new currency system, give up the old currency system because it's valueless, like this one, valueless. So they said, we want to set up a new currency system, and then this one, 6 billion, one bill. It's too big bill, can change 10,000 new money. The new money means that in 1944, when the United States win the battle and even occupy the Japan and the Europe, and then American claim $1 American can anytime change back to gold. It's a fixed price of the paper money dollar with gold. So at that time, American dollar in Chinese name is a golden-based bill or golden notes. So to use American dollar, the Chinese governments borrowed American dollar less than 500 billion. No, not so big. 50 million American dollars, think that is a golden notes. And then based on that, based on the foreign reserve, that is not reserve, it's your borrowed money, foreign debts, issued the gold notes or whatever. It's a dollar gold notes or gold dollar notes, whatever. That is a 金元券. And meanwhile, governments enforce all the private sector, including of the officials and the officers, contribute whatever you have as a gold and silver. You don't have the rights to maintain any gold and silver. You must contribute all to the governments. The governments want to reset up the base. It's a treasury. And then, based on that, governments control how much gold, and then reissue the sovereignty money system. It's also a very good effort. Failed again. Only 4 months, because nobody want to contribute the gold and silver to the governments. Means that parted. So when the KMT governments failed of their so-called deepening financial system reform failed, the governments failed, collapsed. And the army, they have millions, modern armed army, also disbanded, dismissed. So the peasants join the guerrilla movements. They don't need so many modern sectors. They win the fighting to take the big cities, but they have no experience how to maintain the city economy, how to deal with the high inflation. Think about these peasants, revolutionaries, leader. They may familiar with how to mobilize people join the guerrilla, but they have any knowledge of running modern economy. So that is very interesting. So when we talk about this one, we should give you the detailed stories. The first, KMT governments retreat from the mainland to Taiwan. Before that, they gave order to make the central bank transfer out all the gold and silver to Taiwan. So in Taiwan as an island, just a several million population, enough to set up the currency system based on gold reserve. So the Taiwan currency system is stabilized. Very strong facilitates the Taiwan economy. But in mainland, when you set up the new authority, new governments, you have no gold. So large amount of gold flow out to Taiwan. And then when you take these big cities, everything you need to pay. That is not countryside, self-service, or not service, self-reliance. The city, everything, every day, you need to contribute the food, the clothes, the coal, whatever. You need to give them. Like Beijing at that time is a 4 million population. Like Shanghai at the time, 5 million population. How can you contribute enough to give this large number of the citizens in the cities? And then they are trying to issue the paper currency. That is inflation. What do you have? You have no gold. You also have no products, no physical resources. You only said, okay, we win the fight. We set up the governments. But that is a part of the country. It's politically. What is the economic efforts? What you can do? So look at this one. The first, when they first issue the paper money, they need to give almost the same amount to the fiscal deficit. When you want to feed the whole of the cities by fiscal system, by the government's fiscal system, it means that the large deficit immediately grow up. Let's turn to the deficit. And then you have no resources. You only can issue the paper money to facilitate, to fulfill. How much deficit you need to give how much paper money? Means the beginning, the currency system is inflation system. And then, this private sector is businessmen. For them, inflation, not only the pressure, very heavy, but also the chance. If you can take some rice or some clothes or whatever resources, means that you do have the chance to enjoy the high price. If you buy, means 100. Several days later, maybe 500, because inflation. So it means that a lot of private sector join the markets to take the physical products for the increments of the rise, of the price. That is a kind of speculation. So there's no normal markets. And also, these private sectors invest into the silver. The governments gave the order, silver must contribute to the governments. Like KMD governments, the same. But you cannot stabilize the silver price. You said, okay, 100 new money, new currency, can have one piece of the silver. 2 days later, 10 times increased. You cannot stop. So governments want to use the market way. So markets is good. So they want to use the markets. So they do the auction. Governments do have some silvers. They do the auction. And immediately taken by all these private sector. Governments failed. And then the silver price, not 10 times, this time 18 times. we have to give you another very important theoretical event. Because in the late 1940s, instructed by the Soviet Union, Chinese Communist Party understood they are peasant party. They are not workers' party, because the party joined mainly by the peasants. At that time, there's a few workers. The total amount of the working class, of the population of the working class, less than 5%. Even they all join this Communist Party, you still can only have 5%. So, Soviet Union Communist Party said, you are peasants party. So the targets for your occupied city is to develop the national capitalism. You need to first set up the national capitalism. When the national capitalism grow up, when you set up the mass production, when you finish industrialization, you can upgrade into the socialism. Before that, you are in the capitalism. So, in the late 1940s, the Chinese ruling party accept the advice from Soviet Union. They want to develop private capitalism. That is a national capitalism, in name of new democraticism, 新民主主义, new democraticism. And then they said that Sun Zhongshan, Sun Yat-sen, and KMD governments as an old democratism. They want to set up a new one. New one means that to encourage the private businessmen, private capitalists, to run their business in both cities and the countryside. So even they do these things, it's a speculation. They do a lot of bad things. But you have your target. The decision made by the whole party leaders. You also announced to all these so-called democratic parties. They joined this new authority. At that time, a lot of ministers, even vice premiers, come from Democratic Party, not from Communist Party. Means all joined to make the political decision. We are first need to develop private sector, national capitalism. How can you deal with some complicated situation? That is a big challenge. So, that time, the central government's leader in charge of the economic affairs first claim the inflation come from the oversupply of the currency. They said, yeah, it's our problems. But if you do the market readjustment, you need to do going short, means reduce your currency issue. Reduce currency, yes? Because you issue too much currency, have inflation, yes? So it's a contradiction. Which one you go? You're going long or going short? If you are the market system, you're going short, yes? I leave this question to all the audience. You make decision. I stopped here. We can have a 10 minutes break.